that there are questions which, once approached, either isolate you or kill you outright. Afterwards, you have nothing more to lose. From then on, your erstwhile serious pursuits, your spiritual quest for more varied forms of life, your limitless longing for inaccessible things, your elevated frustration with the limits of empiricism, all become simple manifestations of an excessively exuberant sensibility, lacking the profound seriousness which characterizes the man who has penetrated the realm of dangerous mysteries. I'm not talking here of the spiritual calm and empty solemnity of so-called serious people, but of a mad tension that puts every moment of your life on the plane of eternity. This profound seriousness cannot be achieved by confronting purely formal problems, no matter how difficult, because they are generated exclusively by our intelligence, not by the total organic structure of our being. Only the organic and existential thinker is capable of this kind of seriousness, because truth for him is alive, born from inner agony and organic disorder rather than useless speculation. Out of the shadow of the abstract man who thinks for the pleasure of thinking emerges the organic man who thinks because of a vital imbalance and who's beyond science and art. I like thought which preserves a whiff of flesh and blood, and I prefer 1,000 times an idea arising from sexual tension or nervous depression to an empty abstraction. Haven't people learned yet that the time of superficial intellectual games is over? That agony is infinitely more important than syllogism? That a cry of despair is more revealing than the most subtle thought, and that tears always have deeper roots than smiles? Why don't we want to acknowledge the exclusive value of life truths, of truths born in us and revealing a reality proper only to us? Why don't we want to accept that one can entertain lively meditations on death, that the most dangerous issue existing? Death is not something from outside, ontologically different from life, because there is no death independent of life. To step into death does not mean, as commonly believed, especially by Christians, to draw one's last breath and to pass into a region qualitatively different from life. It means, rather, to discover in the course of life the way towards death and to find in life's vital signs the immanent abyss of death. For Christianity and other metaphysical beliefs in immortality, the passing into death is a triumph, an opening towards other regions metaphysically different from life. Contrary to such visions, the true sense of agony seems to me to lie in the revelation of death's immanence in life. But why is the experience of agony so rare? Can it be that our hypothesis is entirely false and that sketching a metaphysics of death is possible only by accepting death's transcendental nature? Healthy, normal, mediocre people cannot experience either agony or death. They live as if life had a definitive character. It is an integral part of normal people's superficial equilibrium to take life as absolutely independent from death and to objectify death as a reality transcending life. That's why they perceive death as coming from the outside, not as an inner fatality of life itself. One of the greatest delusions of the average man is to forget that life is death's prisoner. Metaphysical revelations begin only when one's superficial equilibrium starts to totter and a painful struggle is substituted for naive spontaneity. The premonition of death is so rare in average people that one can practically say that it does not exist. The fact that the presentiment of death appears only when life is shaken to its foundations proves beyond doubt the immanence of death in life. An insight into these depths shows us how illusory is the belief in life's entirety and how well founded the belief in a metaphysical substratum of demonism. If death is immanent in life, why does awareness of death make living impossible? The average man is not troubled by this awareness because the process of passing into death happens simply through a diminution of vital intensity. For such a man, there is only the agony of the last hour, not the long lasting agony related to the very premise of life. From a grave perspective, every step in life is a step into death, and memory is only the sign of nothingness. The average man, deprived of metaphysical understanding, does not have this consciousness of progressive advance into death, though neither he nor anyone else can escape its inexorable destiny. But when consciousness becomes independent of life, the revelation of death becomes so strong that its presence destroys all naivety, all joyful enthusiasm, and all natural voluptuousness. To have the consciousness of death is something perverse and extremely corrupt. The naive poetry of life, its seductions and charms, appear empty of content. Equally empty are a man's finalizing projects and his theological illusions. To see how death spreads over this world, how it kills a tree and how it penetrates dreams, how it withers a flower or a civilization, how it gnaws something individual and uncultural like a destructive of light, means to be beyond tears and regrets, beyond system and form. Whoever has not experienced the awful agony of death, rising and spreading like a source of blood, like the choking grasp of a snake which provokes terrifying hallucinations, does not know the demonic character of life and the state of inner effervescence from which great transfigurations arise. Such a state of black drunkenness is a necessary prerequisite to understanding why one wishes the immediate end of this world. It's not the luminous drunkenness of ecstasy, in which paradise salvations conquer you with their splendor, and you rise to a purity that sublimates into immateriality, but a mad, dangerous, ruinous, and tormented black drunkenness, in which death appears with the awful seduction of nightmarish snake eyes. To experience such sensations and images means to be so close to the essence of reality that both life and death shed their illusions and attain within you their most dramatic form. An exalted agony combines life and death in a horrible maelstrom. Distally, Satanism borrows tears from voluptuousness. Life as a long agony on the road to death is nothing but another manifestation of life's demoniacal dialectics, in which forms are given birth only to be destroyed. The rationality of life manifests itself in this overwhelming expansion of form and content, in this frenetic impulse to substitute new aspects for old ones, a substitution, however, without qualitative improvement. Happy the man who could abandon himself to this becoming and will absorb all the possibilities offered each moment, ignoring the agonizingly problematic evaluation which discovers in every moment an insurmountable relativity. Naivety is their only road to salvation. But for those who feel and conceive life as a long agony, the question of salvation is a simple one. There is no salvation on the road. The revelation of death's immanence in life occurs during illnesses and long depressive states. There are, of course, other ways, but they are accidental and individual and do not have the same potential for revelation as illness or depression. If illnesses have a philosophical mission in the world, then it can only be to prove how illusory is the feeling of life's eternity, and how fragile its illusion of finality. In illness, that is always already in life. Genuine ailment links us to metaphysical realities which the healthy, average man cannot understand. Young people talk of death as external to life, but when an illness hits them with full power, all the illusions and seductions of youth disappear. In this world, the only genuine agonies are those sprung from illness. All other bear the fatal mark of bookishness. Only those who truly suffer are capable of genuine content and infinite seriousness. The others are born to harmony, love, dance, and gracefulness. And there are many who will gladly give up metaphysical revelations, often through despair, agony, and death, in exchange for a naive love of the voluptuous unconsciousness of dance. And there are many who will renounce glory acquired through suffering for an anonymous, happy existence. All illnesses are heroic, but with a heroism of resistance, not of conquest. The heroism of illness defends lives lost, redoubts. The losses are irrevocable, not only for sick people, but also for those who suffer frequently from depressive fits. This explains why current psychological interpretations find no adequate justification for the fear of death common in some types of depression. The structure of depressive states holds the key to their fundamental understanding. These states, in which separation from the world steadily and painfully increases, bring man closer to his inner reality and cause him to discover death in his own subjectivity. A growing interiority progresses toward the essential center of subjectivity, overcoming all the social forms which usually mask it. Once beyond this center, progressive interiority discovers the region where life mingles with death, where man has not yet detached himself from the primary sources of existence, where the demonic rhythm of life works with complete rationality. In cases of depression, the awareness of death's immanence in life creates an atmosphere of constant dissatisfaction and restlessness that can never be appeased. The presence of death in life introduces into one's existence an element of nothingness. One cannot conceive of death without nothingness, nor of life without a principle of negativity. The fear of death, which is nothing but the fear of the nothingness into which death throws us, proves that death presupposes nothingness. The immanence of death in life is a sign of the final triumph of nothingness over life, thus showing that the presence of death has no other meaning than to open progressively the way toward nothingness. Even though belief in eternity is necessary as historical man's unique consolation, the catastrophic ending of this tragedy of life, and of man in particular, will demonstrate the illusion of such naive faith. The only fear is, in fact, the fear of death. Different kinds of fear are merely a manifestation of the same fundamental psychological reality in its various aspects. Those who try to eliminate the fear of death through artificial reasoning are totally mistaken, because it is impossible to cancel an organic fear by way of abstract constructs. Whoever seriously considers the question of death must be afraid. Even those who believe in eternity do so because they are afraid of death. There is in their faith a painful effort to save, even without an absolute certitude, the world of values in which they live and to which they contribute. An effort to defeat the nothingness inherent in the temporal and attain the universal in eternity. Death, met without religious faith, leaves nothing standing. Universal category and form, born illusory and irrelevant when confronted with the irreversible annihilation of death, never will form and category grasp the intimate meanings of life and death. Could idealism or rationalism counteract that? Not at all. Yet other philosophies and doctrines say almost nothing about death. The only valid attitude is absolute silence or a cry of despair. Some people maintain that the fear of death does not have a deeper justification, because as long as there is an I, there is no death, and once dead, there is no I any longer. these people have forgotten about the very strange phenomenon of gradual agony. What comfort does this artificial distinction between the I and death offer a man who has a strong premonition of death? What meaning and logical argument or subtle thought have for someone deeply imbued with a feeling of the irrevocable? All attempts to bring existential questions onto a logical plane are null and void. Philosophers are too proud to confess their fear of death and too supercilious to acknowledge the spiritual fecundity of illness. Their reflections on death exhibit a hypocritical serenity. In fact, they tremble with fear more than anyone else. One should not forget that philosophy is the art of masking inner torments. The feeling for the irreversible and the irrevocable, which always accompanies the awareness of agony, can achieve a painful acceptance, mixed with fear. But there is no such thing as love or sympathy for death. The art of dying cannot be learned because there is no technique, there are no rules. The revocability of agony is experienced by each individual alone, through infinite and intense suffering. Most people are unaware of the slow agony within themselves. For them, there is only one kind of agony, the one immediately preceding. They fall into absolute nothingness. Only such moments of agony bring about important existential revelations in consciousness. That is why they expect everything from the end instead of trying to grasp the meaning of a slow, revelatory agony. The end will reveal too little, and they will die as ignorant as they have lived. Since agony unfolds in time, temporality is a condition not only for creativity, but also for death, for the dramatic phenomenon of dying, the demonic character of time, in which both life and death, creation and destruction, evolve without convergence towards a transcendental plane, is thus made manifest. The feeling of the irrevocable, which appears as an ineluctable necessity going against the grain of our innermost tendencies, is conceivable only because of time's demonism, the conviction that you cannot escape an implacable fate and that time will do nothing but unfold the dramatic process of destruction is an expression of irrevocable agony. Isn't nothingness then salvation? But how can there be salvation in nothingness? If salvation is nearly impossible through existence, how can it be possible through the complete absence of existence? Since there is no salvation either in existence or in nothingness, let this world with its eternal laws be smashed to pieces.